Minho stared at the data screen, but his eyes saw the memory. The Velnor warship, sleek and silent as a dagger, hanging in the sky over New Sol, the single, polite message that had echoed across all channels: comply or be sterilized. He remembered the taste of ash and powerlessness. That was 15 years ago. The galaxy had moved on, believing humanity was tamed, a species of clever traders and agreeable diplomats. Their claws permanently pulled the Velnor Imperium. Satisfied, had imposed the Treaty of Proxima. Humanity could keep its core worlds, but was forbidden from building warships above a certain pitiful size. Their fleet was dismantled under watchful alien eyes. The galaxy saw broken people. They never saw the blueprint. The project's name was Aegis. It was not born in a grand hall, but in a hidden server, a whisper between the most brilliant and broken human minds. If they could not build a fleet, they would build fortresses. Not stationary ones, but moving ones. Worlds that could fight. Now, Minho floated in the heart of the Silent Forge. The official charts called this sector of the Oort cloud Survey Zone Kappa 7, a boring patch of icy rocks and cometary debris. Any passing sensor would ping nothing but background noise and the faint signature of an automated mineral survey station. It was a perfect lie. The truth was a colossal, geometric shadow against the starfield. The eternal dawn. From a distance, it looked like a rough planetesimal, a jagged lump of dark rock over 800 kilometers in diameter. Only up close could one see the seams, the vast hexagonal plates of nano-forged armor, the subtle, cavernous openings that hid weapon ports and launch bays. It was a planet-sized warship, built in secret, piece by stolen piece. The final integrity check on Sector G12 is complete. Chief, a calm voice said in his earpiece. It was Una. Her face appeared on a secondary screen, her dark hair tied back severely, but her eyes alight with a fierce, quiet fire. She was the architect, the one who had turned the insane concept into buildable schematics. The stealth shielding is holding at 98% efficiency. Even a Velnor deep-scan frigate could drift through this cloud and register us as a slightly dense ice cluster. Slightly dense is an understatement, Minho grunted, a faint smile touching his lips. He maneuvered his maintenance pod closer to the monstrous hull. We're hiding a small moon. How are the quantum spool engines? Theoretical until tomorrow's test, Una replied, her fingers dancing over a holographic interface in her control nest, buried deep within the Dawn's core. But the math is solid. They won't create traditional FTL wakes. The ship will sidestep space. No flashy light shows for the Velnor to detect. That was the core of it all. Secrecy. Every component. From the continent-sized armor plates to the smallest data conduit, was fabricated in thousands of tiny automated factories hidden in asteroids across the Sol system. The materials were sourced from mined comets and lost freighters. The labor was done by silent armies of bots, guided by a handful of humans like Minho and Una, who lived in rotating shifts aboard hidden station arcs. Their existence wiped from all official records. Minho guided his pod into one of the service airlocks. The interior was a stark contrast to the rocky exterior. Here was a cathedral of technology. Conduits the size of subway tunnels pulsed with cool blue light. Gravity generators thrummed softly underfoot. The air smelled of ozone and clean metal. He found Una in the primary design nexus, a spherical room whose walls were constantly flowing streams of schematics, stress reports, and resource tallies. She was arguing with a simulation. The gravitational shadow will be detectable during a full-power turn. She insisted to the air, a smooth, androgynous voice the Aegis Project's master AI, designated Keeper, responded. Correct, Architect Una. However, probability models suggest a 97% chance any observer within detection range would classify the signature as a micro-black hole binary event, a natural phenomenon. We are not hiding our existence. We are disguising it as something else. Nature doesn't have right angles, Minho said, walking in. He pulled a nutrient bar from his suit and offered half to Yuna. She took it absently. Thank you. And Keeper has a point. The Vellner look for warships, not wandering planetoids. She sighed, the weight of years showing in the slight slump of her shoulders. Sometimes I think the scale of this will drive me mad. We are painting a masterpiece on the inside of a mountain, hoping no one ever sees the mountain. They'll see it, Minho said, his voice low. When we're ready. When they come for another new soul, then they'll see it, and they'll understand what never again really means. Their moment was shattered by a soft, urgent chime. Keeper's voice lost its conversational tone. Passive sensor web detection. Unidentified vessel on the periphery of the Oort cloud, drifting on a standard survey trajectory. Signature profile is 70% match to a Vellner Pathfinder-class scout. The air froze. Minho and Yuna locked eyes. This was the test they had dreaded and drilled for 1,000 times. Activate phase ghost, Yuna said. Her voice perfectly steady dot throughout the eternal dawn, and the surrounding cloud of construction docks and hidden habitation modules. A new order was executed. Non-essential power systems shut down. Heat signatures were siphoned into thermal sinks buried in ice. The faint electromagnetic whispers of the construction bots ceased. The colossal warship became, for all intents and purposes, a cold, dead rock. On the main viewer, a tactical overlay appeared. A small, sleek silver dot was moving slowly against the starfield. Still far out, but on a course that would bring it within marginal sensor range of their position in 12 hours. They're just sweeping, Minho whispered, as if the scout could hear him. Routine patrol. They've done it 100 times before. This is the first time since we installed the main power core, Yuna replied. The background energy profile is different, even masked. Keeper? The discrepancy is minimal, within the variance of cosmic background radiation, Keeper reported. Probability of detection, 3.2%. 3%. It felt like 99. For 12 hours, the hidden forge held its breath. Minho and Yuna monitored every flicker of data from the scout. They watched as it paused, its sensors actively pinging the surrounding space. A beam swept over their sector. Displays in the Nexus showed the raw data the Vellner ship was collecting. For a heart-stopping second, a tiny anomaly flared a density mismatch. Then, the scout's computer, programmed to look for ships and energy weapons, categorized the anomaly. The log entry, which Keeper intercepted and translated, read, Region Kappa 7, Anomaly 447, likely a high-metal content protoplanetary remnant. No life signs. No energy signatures. Recommend no further action. The silver dot moved on, continuing its bored, methodical sweep of the emptiness. The silence in the Nexus was profound. Then, a long, shaky exhale from Yuna. Minho realized he'd been gripping the edge of the console hard, enough to make the composite material creak. They looked right at us, he said, his voice hoarse. And they saw a rock, Yuna finished. She turned to him, the fierce light back in her eyes, now mixed with triumph. The galaxy never saw it coming, Minho, and they never will. Not until it's too late. Outside, in the eternal night, the eternal dawn remained a silent mountainous shadow. Its construction resumed, the gentle, masked hum of industry returning. The first of its kind was nearly complete. And the Vellner Imperium, masters of the galaxy, had just sailed past their own oblivion, blind to the truth hidden in the dark. The beating heart of Project Aegis was not just in the cold dark of the Oort cloud. It was also in the warm, noisy, crowded places where beings from 1,000 species met, traded, gossiped, and lied. Taeyeon loved those places. To the galaxy, he was Lee Taeyeon, a moderately successful human merchant specializing in redundant cultural data stacks, a fancy term for old entertainment vids, music archives, and literature. He had a friendly face, a ready laugh, and a ship, the Wandering Tale, that was just slightly scruffy enough to be harmless. He was very good at his job. His real job. On the sprawling orbital bazaar known as the Grand Cord, Taeyeon leaned against a railing, sipping a drink that tasted like fizzy honey. Before him, levels of shops and stalls stretched in a dazzling, chaotic column. A Velner magistrate in crisp gray robes haggled with a furry Grix over spice crystals. A pair of human engineers from a licensed colony ship browsed thruster parts. It was the perfect place to listen. His earpiece, disguised as a simple comlink for traders, hummed with a secure, compressed data packet. It was from Suman. He didn't react, just took another sip, his eyes scanning the crowd with amiable curiosity. The packet would wait. Suman was the silent spider at the center of the logistics web. While Minho and Yuna built the giants, and Taeyeon gathered the whispers, Suman moved the pieces. She made sure a shipment of industrial nano-welders, bound for a mining asteroid in the belt, was diverted. She ensured a failed colony survey on a frozen moon requisitioned 10 times the necessary food supplies, which then vanished. She was a ghost in the accounting systems, and her work fed the silent forges. Taeyeon's target today was a Velner logistics clerk named Kale, not a warrior, not a thinker, a paper pusher. And paper pushers, in Taeyeon's experience, loved to complain and loved to feel clever. He spotted Kale at his usual spot, a small info booth where bazaar merchants filed their trade manifests. Taeyeon ambled over, putting on a slightly worried expression. Magistrate Kale, a moment of your time? The Velner looked up, his large, dark eyes blinking slowly. Merchant Lee, your manifest for the Borland textiles is still pending. The anomaly with your mass declarations. Yes, my apologies, Taeyeon said, waving a hand dismissively. New calibration on my ship's scales. All sorted, I'm sure. No, I wanted to ask your opinion. He leaned in conspiratorially. Between us, I'm thinking of investing in a new line. Agricultural stabilization units. For frontier worlds. I hear there's a growing demand? Kale's expression soured. A waste of credits. The only thing growing on the human frontier is dust and disappointment. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. Between us, my office just processed a dozen requests from your people for soil aeration components, hydroponic regulators. For a single small agricultural station on Proxima's third moon. The tonnage is absurd. It is inefficient. It is pathetic. He said the last word with a mix of pity and contempt. Taeyeon's heart beat faster, but his face showed only respectful confusion. Pathetic? How so? Your species clings to dirt, Kale sneered softly. While the Imperium masters gravity lens drives, you ask for more soil sensors. You see? This is why the treaty was necessary. To redirect your energies. He tapped a claw on his data slate. Take this latest request I just approved. For the Eden's Bloom station. Enough polymer tubing to circle a small planet. For what? To grow vegetables? It is a comedy. Taeyeon forced a chuckle, nodding as if appreciating the joke. A comedy indeed. Well, perhaps I will avoid agriculture. Stick to stories. Less. Bulky. He thanked Kale and slipped away, his friendly mask firmly in place. The information was gold. Kale had just confirmed that the cover story for the second Aegis ship, being built near Proxima Centauri, was holding. The Velner saw only a clumsy, resource-hungry, an ultimately pathetic human farming project. They were not just blind. They were arrogantly blind. Taeyeon quickly encoded a brief message. Cover solid. Eden's bloom fertilizer request, approved with contempt. He sent it into the void, where it would bounce through a dozen relay points before reaching Sumin. Deep in a nondescript office complex on Mars, Sumin received the ping. She was a woman of calm precision. Her workspace was neat, her movements economical. On her main screen, a complex web of shipping lanes, supply lists, and personnel movements glowed. One node, labeled Jade Defender, pulsed gently. The second planet-sized warship. Taeyeon's report from the Grand Chord was one piece. A cargo manifest from a freighter, piloted by a friendly Grix captain, was another. A power usage report from a remote listening post near Jupiter was a third. She cross-referenced them all. The Gelner were growing a faint background suspicion. Their patrols near the edges of human space were 5% more frequent. Their scans were marginally more thorough. But as Taeyeon's report showed, their cultural bias was their weakness. They could not conceive of humans building anything greater than what they were permitted. They looked at the massive resource draws and saw wastefulness, not warfare. Sumin's job was to lean into that. She authorized a new leak. A fabricated internal human memo, easily intercepted by Velner intelligence, lamenting the chronic cost overruns and technical failures of the Proxima Agri Station. It spoke of political pressure to keep the project alive for jobs, of engineering incompetence. It was a document designed to make a Velner analyst smirk and close the file. Meanwhile, she coordinated the real movement. A convoy of seemingly empty ore haulers, their holds lined with stealth material to mask their true cargo, made the slow jump towards Proxima. Inside were the final crystalline matrices for the Jade Defender's main weapon core. Their flight path took them right past the Velner monitoring station. The station scanned them, found them empty as per their manifests, and logged them as returning from a failed mining venture. Another data point of human inefficiency. Back on the Grand Chord, Taeyeon prepared to leave. His work here was done. As he walked back to his ship, he passed a public viewport. He stopped for a moment, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, near a quiet red dwarf star, the Jade Defender was taking shape. A twin to the eternal dawn, a weapon of last resort, hidden inside a fictional tale of agricultural struggle. He thought of Kale's contemptuous face. The Velner saw weak, scattered people, good only for trade and trivialities. They never saw the pattern. They never connected the failed farms with the lost freighters with the incorrect manifests. They were masters of the galaxy, looking for grand fleets and declarations of war. They were not looking for a secret told in 1,000 boring, administrative lies. A Grix child, holding its parent's claw, pointed out the viewport at a particularly bright star. "What's that?" The child chirped. "Oh, that's just Proxima Centauri," the parent rumbled. "Nothing there but some human farms. Boring." Taeyeon smiled to himself, a real smile this time, and boarded the wandering tail. The galaxy was sleeping, snug in its assumptions. And humanity, silently, carefully, was building a wake-up call the size of a world. The colony of Eden 7 was not a grand place. It was a testament to quiet stubbornness, a cluster of domes and greenhouses, clinging to the side of a rusty canyon on a world with thin, cold air. Its people were farmers, geologists, and dreamers. Governor Jisoo liked it that way. Her office was simple, the view from her window showing not stars, but the hardy, genetically modified wheat fields that were slowly turning the valley green. It was a peaceful, fragile kind of work, the kind the Velner had deemed harmless. The peace shattered with a shriek from the orbital alert system. Jisoo's data slate, filled with reports on water reclamation, was suddenly overlaid with a stark tactical diagram. 3 Vellner vessels, sleek and sharp as surgical tools, had jumped into the system. They were not the large battleships, but the smaller, faster Lancer-class enforcers. The message that followed was not polite. It was a cold, digital order. Eden 7. This is the Vellner Imperium. You are in violation of Agricultural Quota 17, subsection 9. You have exceeded your permitted biomass yield. Prepare for immediate inspection and compliance adjustment. Jisoo felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planet's atmosphere. They all knew what compliance adjustment meant. It was a punitive bombing. A lesson. They would target the greenhouses, the water processors. They would set the colony back a generation, and the galaxy would nod and say the humans should have followed the rules. Her hands didn't shake. She opened a secure channel, the one that was never to be used unless the sky was falling. This is Governor Park Jisoo of Eden 7 to Seoul Command. We have a Code Vermilion. I repeat, Code Vermilion. 3 Lancers. They are citing a quota violation. Requesting clarification on our options. Her voice was calm, but the words Code Vermilion tasted like ash in memory. Across the solar system, in a hidden command bunker buried deep under the Marian Genie on the moon, alarms softly chimed. The alert reached Commander Deo, who was running a combat simulation on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn. The simulation froze. The main viewer switched to a live feed from Eden 7. He saw the 3 Vellner ships, like wolves circling a sheepfold. He saw the colony's tiny, useless orbital sensor platform, blinking a desperate warning. His bridge crew, a small group of the best and most patient humans alive, looked at him. There was no panic, only a grim, focused energy. They had trained for this moment for a decade. Signal from High Command, his communications officer said. Priority Alpha. Intervene. Prevent loss of life. Do not reveal full capabilities. Rules of engagement. Minimum necessary force. Daeho nodded slowly. Minimum necessary force. With a ship that could crack a continent. The challenge was not in winning. It was in sending a message without showing the whole message. It was a whisper, not a shout. Navigation, Daeho said, his voice firm. Plot a microjump. Put us directly between the colony and the lead Lancer. 10-kilometer separation. Activate full stealth until the moment we emerge. Aye, Commander. On Eden 7, Jisoo stood at the viewport of her office. She could see the faint, menacing glint of the Vellner ships in the daylight sky. Her personal com crackled. It was the Vellner commander. Governor, your silence is non-compliance. Your agricultural domes will be sterilized in 10 minutes. Perhaps next time you will count your seeds more carefully. Jisoo closed her eyes for a second, drawing on a well of anger she kept buried. She opened them and spoke into the com, her voice clear and loud for her own people to hear. We have violated no quota. Your scans are in error. This is an act of naked aggression, and it will be witnessed. The Vellner commander gave a soft, hissing laugh. Witnessed by whom? Your pitiful trading partners? Begin targeting sequence. At that moment, the sky changed. There was no flash of light, no thunderous boom. One moment, there was empty space between the lead Lancer and the colony's main dome. The next, that space was filled with darkness. A vast, impossible wall of dark gray, pocked and rocky like a mountainside, but curving away into the sky. It blocked the sun, casting a sudden, deep twilight over the canyon. The eternal dawn had arrived. On the bridge of the Lancer, the Vellner commander's laughter died. His sensor officer was screaming. Massive object. Direct emergence. No energy signature. No drive wake. It's reading as a planetoid. But it wasn't there. It wasn't there. The eternal dawn hung in the sky, silent and immovable. It made no move, emitted no signal. It was simply present. A fact. Daho watched the Vellner ships scramble on his screen. They were breaking formation, their weapons powering down in confusion. Open a channel to the lead ship. Audio only, he instructed. On the Lancer's bridge, the comms crackled. A calm human voice spoke. Vellner vessels. You are threatening a protected human colony. Leave, now. The Vellner commander, his pride wounded and his mind reeling, made a fatal mistake. Fear and arrogance mixed. Human trickery. A hologram. A rock. All weapons target that. That object. Fire. A dozen bright lances of plasma energy shot from the Lancer, meant to vaporize asteroids. They struck the dark hull of the Eternal Dawn. On the colony surface, Jishu and her people flinched, waiting for an explosion. Nothing happened. The plasma bolts impacted and spread harmlessly across the hexagonal plates, dissipating like water on a hot griddle. Not a single plate glowed. The ship didn't even shudder. On Daho's bridge, a damage report flashed. Hull integrity, 100%. Nanite repair systems report superficial carbon scoring on Sector A4. No action required. Daho sighed. They had been given a chance to leave. Minimum necessary force, he said. Target the lead ship's main reactor. Single low-yield graviton pulse. A section of the Eternal Dawn's rocky facade shimmered and slid aside. A ring of dark energy coalesced. There was a sound, a deep thump that was felt in the bones of everyone on the colony below, not heard. A ripple in reality shot out. It struck the lead Lancer. There was no fiery explosion. The ship simply came apart. Its structure, its molecules, lost their cohesion. It unraveled silently into a cloud of glittering component dust that scattered in the solar wind. One moment a warship, the next a fading metallic mist. The silence that followed was absolute. The two remaining Lancers hung frozen. Send to remaining vessels, Daho said. The same message. The comms crackled again on the Vellner ships. The same calm voice. Leave now. They left. Their engines flared to maximum, jumping away in a panic so deep they violated their own safety protocols. On Eden 7, the colossal shadow began to move. Slowly, silently, it turned and slipped behind the moon, vanishing from sight as if it had never been. The sun returned to the canyon. Jisoo stood at the viewport, her hands pressed against the cool glass. Her people were spilling out of the domes, pointing, crying, hugging. They were saved. But her eyes were on the empty space where the mountain had been. A weapon the size of a world. A secret they had kept. A power they now had her secure compinged. It was a message from High Command. Governor Jisoo, you performed admirably. The incident is over. Maintain all protocols. The galaxy is watching. She looked up at the stars, now seeming much smaller than they had an hour ago. The Vellner had come to teach a lesson about seeds and quotas. They had been taught a different lesson entirely. But she knew, with a cold certainty, that this was not the end. They had shown a single claw. The galaxy had seen it, and nothing would ever be the same again. The silence after Eden 7 was the loudest sound Hannah had ever heard. As humanity's ambassador to the Galactic Assembly, her entire career had been a performance of contrition, of humble cooperation, of predictable weakness. She was an expert in the subtle art of losing gracefully. Now, standing in the vast, circular chamber with its floating representatives from 100 species, she felt the performance was over. The stage itself was shaking. The Vellner Imperium's ambassador, an imposing figure named Chlor, was not shouting. His voice was a controlled, furious ice. An unprovoked act of galactic aggression. A weapon of mass destruction, deployed in secret, in direct violation of the Treaty of Proxima. This was not defense. This was the unveiling of a monstrous deceit. Holographic displays floating above the assembly floor showed the sanitized version of the event. The Vellner Lancers near Eden 7. The sudden, inexplicable appearance of a massive object. The destruction of one ship. The Vellner had carefully edited the data, removing the moments of their own aggression, presenting themselves as peaceful inspectors attacked by a hidden human super-dash weapon. Hana waited. She let the outrage build. She watched the other delegates, the insectoid chicks, the aquatic nereids. The stoic stone-like Grav exchanged nervous glances. Fear was in the air, not of the Vellner, but of the unknown. A planet-sized warship? It sounded impossible. It sounded like a Vellner excuse. But the sensor data, what little they shared, was troubling. Finally, the assembly chair, a serene nereid, gestured to her. "Ambassador Hana, the floor is yours for response." Hana stood, smoothing the simple gray fabric of her suit. She did not activate grand holograms. She simply spoke, her voice clear and carrying a tone of weary confusion. "Thank you, honored chair. Ambassador Clore speaks of monsters and deceit. What I see in this recording is a tragedy of misunderstanding." She paused, letting the word misunderstanding hang in the air. The object in question is not a secret warship. It is the Eden 7 planetary reclamation and stabilization platform. A prototype. A ripple of surprise went through the chamber. Clore's eyes narrowed. "For years," Hana continued, her face a mask of earnest explanation, "our scientists have worked on geoengineering solutions to tame dead worlds, to create stable cores and atmospheres. This platform is a mobile gravity forge, designed to gently adjust a planet's tectonic stability. It is, by necessity, large. Its outer shell is raw asteroid material for insulation. It was undergoing a discrete test in the Eden 7 system when it detected what it perceived as an imminent kinetic attack on the colony, a misreading of the Vellner ship's weapons powering up. Its automated defense system, intended to deflect asteroids, engaged in a catastrophic error. We grieve for the loss of Vellner life. It was a terrible accident born of paranoia and overly enthusiastic safety protocols. She sold the lie with the skill of a lifetime. She sounded like a bureaucrat apologizing for a clumsy, over-engineered piece of farming equipment. She saw doubt on many faces. The story was absurd, but so was the idea of humans building a secret Death Star. Which was more likely? A deceitful warrior race breaking a treaty? Or a clumsy, frightened one accidentally turning on their own giant tractor? Clore stood again, his fury barely contained. "Lies! You expect this chamber to believe this? This fairy tale of a farming machine?" "What I believe," Hana said softly, "is that the Vellner Imperium sent 3 warships to bomb a farming colony over a quota dispute about wheat. Who here is the aggressor? Who here values life less?" She didn't wait for an answer. "We have offered our full telemetry data for review. We have suspended the platform's testing. We seek peace." The session dissolved into chaos. No consensus was reached, but Hana had done her job. She had planted the seed of doubt. She had given the neutral species an excuse not to side with the Vellner. It was a delay, nothing more. It was not enough for Clore. The Vellner Imperium's pride was a physical wound. To be challenged, to be made to look foolish by the dirt grubbers, was intolerable. The order went out from the Vellner High Command. The entire 4th Grand Fleet, their pride, was mobilized. 200 of their finest warships, led by the colossal dreadnought World Razor. Their mission was not a policing action. It was annihilation. They would jump to the Sol system, dismantle every human outpost, and glass Earth itself as an example. The galaxy would watch and understand the price of defiance. The Human Intelligence Network, Tayyan's whispers and Suman's ghosts, detected the fleet's assembly almost immediately. The data flowed to the Lunar Command bunker. The time for whispers was over. Aboard the Jade Defender, floating in the silent dark near Proxima Centauri, Chief Tactical Officer Jun Seo received the final authorization codes. On his screens, he saw the Velner Armada begin its jump, a wave of crimson icons moving as one towards the heart of humanity. Signal from High Command, his officer said. Operation Stone Flower is authorized. All Aegis vessels converge on Sol, unveil. Jun Seo allowed himself a small, hard smile. Navigation. Plot the jump. Take us home. And drop the curtain. Across 5 hidden points in the galaxy, the same order was given. In the Oort cloud, near the icy rings of Uranus, in the shadow of Mars, behind the moon, and now at Proxima, the silent giants awoke. In the Sol system, civilian traffic was quietly rerouted. Panic was prevented by a simple, calming message. Planetary defense exercise underway. Please remain calm. People on Earth. Mars, the Jovian colonies, looked up at the sky. Curious. The Velner 4th Grand Fleet emerged from their jump in a glittering, terrifying wave, forming a battle line just outside the orbit of Mars. The World Razor dominated the center, a city of black metal and glowing weapons. Admiral Clore himself was on the bridge, eager to deliver the demand for surrender. His communications officer spoke, voice puzzled. Admiral, we are being hailed by the human government. Audio only. Clore nodded. Let them beg. Put it through. The same calm voice from Eden 7 filled the bridge. Velner Fleet, you are in violation of sovereign human space. Leave now. Clore laughed. Or what? You will throw more rocks at us. No, the voice said. We will show you the garden. And then space around them. Changed. It was not 1 emergence. It was 5. With the same silent, impossible suddenness as at Eden 7, but multiplied. To the fleet's starboard. Near the swirling storms of Jupiter, the eternal dawn materialized. Its rocky face now clearly geometric. Purposeful. To port, just beyond Mars, the Jade Defender appeared, its surface shimmering with a faint greenish energy. Above the plane of the ecliptic. The unyielding resolve and the silent guardian slid into reality. Below it, the Pillar of Autumn completed the formation. 5 planet-sized warships. Each different, but each radiating a quiet, absolute power. They formed a loose ring around the inner solar system. And the Velner fleet found itself not as hunters, but as prey caught in the center of a cage made of worlds. On the bridge of the World Razor, every alarm was silent. The sheer scale of the betrayal, the technological leap, the strategic perfection of the trap, short-circuited Velner comprehension. Sensor screens were a mess of panic. The mass readings alone were staggering. Their mighty dreadnought was a pebble next to a mountain. Admiral Clore could only stare, his jaw slack, at the main viewer. It showed the pocked, armored surface of the Jade Defender, so close he could see the canyons that were actually weapon ports. He had come to crush an insect. He had found a nest of sleeping giants, now awake and looking directly at him. The galaxy, through every diplomatic and spy channel, was watching. They saw the Velner Armada, poised for destruction. And they saw, for the first time, what humanity had built in the dark. Not one monster. A family of them. The message was no longer a request. It was a statement of fact, written across the stars in the ink of impossible engineering. The performance was over. The truth was now the only thing that mattered. The silence in space was absolute. Inside the ring of 5 planet-sized warships, the Velner fleet hung motionless. 200 ships that had come to bring fire and judgment now drifted like lost children in a canyon of giants. On the bridge of the World Razor, Admiral Clore could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. The data on his screens was incomprehensible. Weapon systems were locked, not by enemy fire, but by the ship's own terrified A's, which calculated the insanity of attacking a mobile world. The scale was not just defeating. It was humiliating. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Commander Deo watched the tactical display. He saw the panic in the Vellner formation. He felt no joy, only a heavy certainty. This was the moment they had built for, sacrificed for, hidden for. Minho stood beside him, his engineer's eyes scanning the hull integrity readings, though there was nothing to scan. The Vellner fleet could fire everything they had for a week and barely scratch the paint. Yuna was at her station, her fingers resting lightly on the interface. The masterpiece was complete. Now they had to use it without becoming the monsters they had built it to deter. "They are hailing us, Commander," the communications officer said. "The World Razor, audio and visual." Deho nodded. "Put it through. Visual on main screen only. Do not broadcast our bridge." The main viewer shimmered. Admiral Clore's face appeared, but it was not the face of a proud conqueror. It was the face of a being whose understanding of the universe had just been broken. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a stunned, hollow confusion. "What? What is this?" Clore's voice was a whisper. "This is a boundary," Deo replied, his voice calm and even. "You have crossed it. You will not cross it again. You deceived the entire galaxy." The accusation was weak, a reflex. "We survived," Deo corrected him. "You gave us the choice, kneel or die. We chose a third option." He paused, letting the words hang. "You will order your fleet to power down their weapons and their drives. You will await escort vessels. Your crews will be treated with dignity and returned to Vellner space. Your ships will be studied and then returned. This is not a negotiation. On Earth, in the Lunar Command bunker, and on colonies everywhere, humans watched." Ambassador Hana watched from the assembly chambers, which had fallen into a stunned hush as the live feed from Sol arrived. She said nothing. No explanation was needed now. The truth was there for all to see. Clore's pride fought a last, dying battle. "And if I refuse, you will destroy us all? Prove you are the savages we always said you were?" Deho almost smiled. "No." He gave a small nod to Yuna. She tapped a sequence. Across all 5 Aegis ships, a new kind of system activated. It did not fire a weapon. It projected a field dot to the Vellner, and to the watching galaxy, it seemed as if space itself flexed. A deep, resonant hum traveled through the hulls of every ship, a sound felt in the bones. The stars outside the ring of giants seemed to blur and stretch. Then, gently, irresistibly, the entire Vellner fleet began to move. Not under their own power. They were being pushed. The gravitational tide created by the Aegis ships was a soft, immense hand sliding the 200 warships back, away from Earth, away from the inner planets, herding them like sheep towards the outer system, where they could do no harm. It was a display of power so precise, so controlled, it was more terrifying than any explosion. They were not just being defeated, they were being managed. On the World Razor, Clore stumbled as the deck shifted beneath him. He watched on his screens as his mighty fleet, the pride of the Imperium, was moved without consent. Resistance was impossible. He looked back at the screen at Deho's implacable face, and in that moment he understood. Humanity had not built these things to conquer. They had built them to be left alone, to make the cost of bullying them infinite. With a voice stripped of all power, he gave the order. "All ships, stand down, comply." The tension in the solar system broke. The silent giants had spoken without firing a single shot. Weeks later, the Galactic Assembly reconvened. The Vellner delegation was quiet, shrunken. Ambassador Hanna stood once more. She did not speak of accidents or farming equipment. She spoke plainly. For generations, we lived under the threat of extinction for the crime of existing differently. We chose not to fight your war. We chose to build our peace. The Aegis vessels are, and will forever be, defensive platforms. They will guard the Sol system and our allied worlds. They will not attack. They will not expand. But they will ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone again. The Assembly voted. The old classifications were scrubbed. Humanity was not listed as a subject species or a militant threat. They were entered into the galactic records as a guardian species, a neutral defensive power. It was a unique and awkward category, born of awe and fear. Back in the Sol system, the Aegis fleet moved into its final permanent formation. The 5 vast ships took up positions in a wide, stable ring, equidistant from each other and the sun. From Earth, they were now visible at night with a simple telescope 5 knew. Steady points of light arranged like a distant crown. On the observation deck of the Eternal Dawn, Minho and Yuna stood together, looking out at the familiar stars of home. A silence between them was comfortable, the work finally done. "It's strange," Minho said. "We spent our lives building the ultimate weapon, and its greatest victory was won by not being a weapon at all." Yuna nodded, watching the distant gleam of Jupiter. "We built a wall so high, no one would ever try to climb it. Now we have to learn to live in its shadow." She turned to him. "The Keeper AI has proposed a new project, using the same nanoforges and gravity manipulators. Not for armor, but for something else." "Oh?" Minho raised an eyebrow. "Planetary restoration," she said, a genuine smile touching her lips for the first time in years. "Terraforming. The Jade Defender systems could, with modification, restart the core of a dead world, generate a magnetic field, thicken an atmosphere." Minho looked at her, then back at the stars, seeing not threats, but possibilities. Empty worlds that could bloom. A future built not from fear, but from the quiet, stubborn will to grow. "A garden," he said softly, remembering Dow's words to the Vellner Admiral. "Yes," Yuna said. "Now we build the garden." Below them, on the blue-green marble of Earth, life continued. Children were born. Crops grew. People looked up at the night sky, not with fear of what might come from the dark, but with the quiet assurance that the dark would now be kept at bay. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Never underestimate the patience of a species that loves its home. And it never saw them coming.